Thank you.
All right, great. Thanks, Glenn. Thanks, everybody, for being here this morning. And I'm going to spend the next 45 minutes or so walking you through a case study within the Athene Retirement Optimizer software. I know you all just recently, for the most part, kind of completed the class, so probably don't have to spend too much time on the front end reviewing, but I just want to take a minute to remind you that the whole premise of what we do is that we drive, or I should say we attempt to build better, more fortified plans for, on average, 50% less capital. And we do that by taking a fundamentally different financial planning approach when building retirement income plans. And specifically, as I've described to everybody in the past, we use what we call asset optimization to deliver an income plan. The Athene Retirement Optimizer is going to allow you to effectively compare and contrast an asset allocation approach versus an asset optimization approach. So we're going to stress test for people their current plan, whatever that may be, whatever they articulate in that first meeting, no matter how complex or how simple. Our goal is to get them to share with us what their income goal is, obviously all the details around Social Security, their retirement savings, and other forms of retirement income that they may have, and show them in real time how much capital their plan, as they lay it out, will require in order to meet the plan objectives. And the focus is always going to be on the time horizon, the portfolio construct, and the desired probability of success. But you'll see how it comes together. And then we're going to show them an alternative to their plan using an asset allocation approach. And then finally, the optimized plan. So every plan is different. I know when I went through the training, it sometimes feels like I'm advocating that everybody wait till 70, and that's not the case at all. But what I am attempting to do is get everybody to understand what is the disparity between early and later, because most prospects are fairly informed, sometimes not accurately so, but they're fairly opinionated or informed about why they want to take early, and they can, cite a few reasons as to why they think it makes sense, but they don't really understand, from my perspective, what the opportunity cost is, especially from an economic value perspective. So they don't really grasp the idea that Social Security could be the one last opportunity they have to save what may otherwise be a doomed retirement income plan. So that's really kind of where we go with this, is we're showing them, here's your plan, here's the capital that's required, here's an alternative. So we're putting on display again how taking benefits at a different time can impact the outcome. And then here's the optimized. But ultimately, the optimized, I would define as the plan that requires you to commit the least amount of capital to achieve your plan's objectives, right? And that's powerful, because if you've got somebody who's ahead of the game and they've accumulated a bunch of money, when they learn that they can build a plan for, half as much as they thought they could, then that frees up a lot of money to do other things. What I would argue are other more, kind of exciting things. And then for those who are behind the curve a little bit, it takes them from no shot to maybe being fully funded. So that's it. Now, on the left side, when you come into the software, the first thing you'll see are what I call scenarios. So we've got single with a pension, and if somebody has a pension, we want to know, does that pension come with an automatic cost of living adjustment or not? The reason for this is, if a plan has a cost of living adjustment built in, then the income gap that we're going to calculate is going to be different than a plan that does not, right? And then married with pension, COLA, no COLA, for the same reason. And then married, one spouse already filed. Whoop, I didn't mean to do that. One spouse already filed, and then COLA, no COLA. So we go from essentially most simplistic to most complex. The real difference between these scenarios is how many inputs are required. So obviously a single person with no pension has far fewer inputs than a married couple with two pensions. So we're just trying to make it easier. So when you, as the user, get into the software, you're not having to look at, an additional half a dozen or dozen inputs that really aren't relevant to what you're doing. and wasting a lot of time. But what I want to focus on today is I want to focus on a married couple. I want to focus on one of the case studies that we routinely use, and I probably covered or used this case study, at least I think I may have, during our time together when we did our training. So normally what happens is to build a case, you hit enrollment. Okay, and now if I say add enrollment, now it's going to allow me to start entering the data I need to enter to build a case. So anything that's white, any of the fields that are white, or where I enter information, any of the fields that are kind of this light gray off-white, they're going to be populated based upon what we enter into the white fields. So I'm going to go back because I have this pre-populated in order to save time. I'm just going to go back to this case study that I have here. So there's different case studies. I'm gonna use a different one than I have in here now. But when I build a case, or you build a case, and by the way, I encourage you when you have cases to come to us through your partners at DMI. Let us help you build your first few cases. That'll help you kind of get through the learning curve a little faster. We'll help you not only build the case, but we can talk through how we would present each case, and each case is definitely different. So let's say we have a couple that's achieving full retirement age this year. So that means they were born in 1956, and let's say they were born today, right, October 28th. And to make life easy, let's assume, I do this all the time, my case studies, let's assume they were born on the exact same day, okay? So they're 66, and let's say their primary insurance amounts. So what we enter here is primary insurance amounts, and let's say one of their primary insurance amounts is $3,200, the other is $2,800. Now, one thing, if they are currently working, you can enter their income in here, right? It'll only have an impact if there's a disparity in age, which there isn't here. So I'm going to leave that alone for now, but you can put that in there. It cannot hurt you to put projected income between CA, which is current age, and DRA, which is desired retirement age down here. Can only help your analysis, can't hurt you. So now you'll see the Social Security benefits are calculated. You also see here spousal benefits, if any. So as an example, you'll remember that if somebody has, if their benefit is less than half of the higher benefit, then they'd be entitled to an excess spousal benefit. So let's pretend for a minute that the second spouse has $1,000 PIA. Automatically, the software is going to calculate for you what is the excess spousal benefit. Okay, so I just wanted you to see that. And by the way, if they have a pension and it's a public pension, we're going to enter in the number of YOCs like we talked about in the training, and it's going to actually calculate the WEP reduction and give you the WEP PIA. I'm going to go back here to this original number and put in 2,800. And then we're going to scroll down here, and here are the scenarios we can look at. So we're going to say their desired retirement age is full retirement age, which because they're born in 56 is 66 and 4 months. And we're going to say their intent, their plan is to take benefits at FRA. And we're going to create a stress test, if you will, of their plan. So how much capital does their plan require? Then we'll look at an alternative. Again, this should look familiar to you. So we'll say, what if they wait till 70? Not that everybody should, but I know this case because I built it for this purpose. And 70 is the optimal strategy. So we'll say how much capital, what we're solving for is how much capital do we need if we retire at 66 and 4 months? And in the first scenario, take benefits at 66 and 4 months. In the alternative, we'll look at what if we retired 66 and 4 months, take benefits at 70. And then lastly, we'll look at retiring 66 and 4 months and taking benefits at 70. But instead of using an asset allocation approach, we'll use this asset optimization approach. Now, this next section right here is kind of a catch-all. So in the event the client has other forms of income, if they had a pension, you would have clicked a different scenario and it would be asking you for pension information. But in the event they have any other income that's guaranteed that they want you to consider, this is the place we can capture it here. So maybe they have an annuity that they're already collecting a benefit from. Maybe they have rental property that they've built into their plan and they want us to account for the net income that that's going to provide. So we can capture that here. I'm going to assume nothing here now today for this purpose. And then if they have any tax exempt interest from municipal bonds, we're going to capture that here. We capture that separately because, as you may recall, while dividend income from municipal bonds is not income taxable, it is countable in the provisional income formula. So we want to make sure we capture that independently and properly. So I'm going to say, no, they don't have any. No one seems to anymore. 30 years ago, everybody had it. Then we'll look at capital available. So let's say spouse one has 600,000, and let's say spouse two has 600,000. So they have $1.2 million together. Okay. And then we're going to put in down here, what's the income goal? So again, you're not doing this in front of the client. You're going to capture this information in your original fact-finding meeting. Then you're going to plug it in and save it in this report, in this software. So when they come in, you can pull it up and review it with them. But we're going to assume their annual income goal at their desired retirement age, which is 66 and 4 months, is $108,000. Now, separately, and I want to be clear on this, we have this assumed rate of return on excess capital. In the event any of the scenarios have excess capital, we are going to calculate a future value on that later on in the report, but we're going to enter in here what we want to use as an assumed rate of return for any of the excess capital that may ultimately be available based upon the plan. So I use 5%. You can use anywhere from 1 to 5. Compliance departments aren't going to let you use more than 5. I use 5 because it's very simple in my mind. If I've got excess capital, that means the plan is fully funded. So this client has money in qualified plans that I don't need for income, and I can invest it very differently. So I think 5% is an achievable number over time, especially if I don't have to build a portfolio that's guarding against dollar cost ravaging because I'm systematically taking income from that. That wouldn't be the case if it was excess capital. So we can be more aggressive, less concerned about sequence of return over time. It's reasonable to assume we could get a better return in the neighborhood of maybe 5%. Separate from that, when we're building the plan, we want to know what's the income goal, 108,000, and then what's their, portfolio construct. So essentially, what's their frame of mind as it relates to risk. I usually kind of push people toward the 60-40. Most don't really know, but I think they can agree 60-40 given their age and where they are and what they're trying to accomplish makes sense. And then what's the retirement period? So we offer 15 to 40 years in 5-year increments. This couple is just turning 66. So be on the safe side, we're going to use 30 years. And then what do we want the probability of success to be? We offer anywhere from a coin flip 50 to 99. I use 95. You could use 99. What I'll tell you is the initial net safe withdrawal rate becomes a sub 2% number. And when you do that, you may find yourself, defending your position. We can get to where we want to go, which is put on full display for them the difference from a financial perspective between asset optimization, asset allocation by using 95% or even 90%, and the initial safe withdrawal rate is defendable, so we don't get hung up there. So hopefully that makes sense. I do bring the 99 in sometimes to the discussion later, which I can show you, but I use 95 as a standard. And then what is their marital / filing tax status? Because we want to calculate and estimate what the taxable income will be, giving all sources of income. So the bottom here, we have the optimized intake data. So this is, again, the gray area, or it's a gray field. So we know the 108 was populated. This 16,294 is the inflation adjusted gap that will remain under the optimized scenario, which I picked 70. Then we want to look at what product are we going to use to close that gap under the optimized scenario? And I put in deferred annuity with income rider to give people the flexibility of using fixed, indexed, variable that have living benefit riders. We use strictly fixed indexed in my world for a whole host of reasons, not the least of which is they tend to have the most competitive pricing from a leverage perspective, but also, you're not subjecting the underlying account value to the ravages of the market and knowing all you're going to get in return is the guarantee anyway. So deferred annuity with income rider will cover it all. We use lifetime income benefit riders on fixed indexed annuities. The premium for this solution, delivering $16,291 at 70 was $271,000. And I believe it was like $835. I might be off by a couple of dollars, but it's close enough. So that premium was for the Athene Ascent Pro 10 to contractually deliver on a fully guaranteed basis the additional income need, the $16,294 inflation adjusted gap at 70. We know Athene can deliver it for the duration of 2 lives on a fully guaranteed basis for $271,835. So now the inputs are done. The only other things we want to know are, does the product have the ability to combat inflation? The Athene Ascent Pro 10 does, because we picked the rider that allows the income to be positively impacted by any positive crediting rate based upon the index that's selected. And then we picked a joint life, could be single. So now the plan is fully built out. Everything is in there. Come over, hit generate report. Updating continues. So you do that every time you make a change, just so you know you captured the updated information. Obviously, I made a bunch of changes to this. I was already in here and I opened it and changed it. So now everything is confirmed. Now I'm going to go over here. The toolbar now has changed a little bit. And what you see here is kind of a reflection of all the pages from the report that are actually in the software. So to show the stress test, I'm going to go to the current inputs. And this is a little analytic. You don't have to start here, but I'm going to start here, and then we can talk about the different ways that you can kind of introduce this to a client. But essentially what we have here is we have people's primary insurance amounts, which you'll remember is their retirement income benefit at full retirement age. And that's the benefit value that everything is based upon, right? It's either dialed down if they take early, dialed up if they delay. It's the number that's used to determine if any auxiliary benefits are payable, so on and so forth. So their desired retirement age is 66 and 4 months, which is their full retirement age. There's no spousal benefit due because there's no disparity between half of the higher benefit and all of the smaller benefits. That's why it's a 0. And for many people, when they intend to retire and when they intend to take benefits can be different. In this example, we're going to assume it's the same age. So that means the benefit amount at that age, at the age they intend to take benefits, is 38.4, and the primary insurance amount is 38.4. Why does it match? Well, because primary insurance amount is your retirement income benefit at FRA, and they're not taking benefits at FRA. So if they were to take benefits later, this number would be higher, as you'll see in a minute. And the second spouse's income is 33.6. So if they have a $108,000 income goal and Social Security is going to provide $72,000 of it, there's no pensions to consider, no other forms of guaranteed income. The annual income gap, if they turn on income, they retire and collect benefits today, the gap is $36,000. So we're gonna stress test whether or not the $1.2 million they've accumulated is going to be enough to meet their plan objectives. Remember, the plan objectives are 30 years at a 95% probability of success. So for the plan to be successful, we need to be able to deliver $36,000 inflation adjusted for the next 30 years. And we need to be able to do that with a 95% probability of success. Well, to arrive at the conclusion of the stress test, which is how much capital will this plan require, we divide 36,000, the income need, by the initial safe withdrawal rate of 2.4. And just as a refresher, you'll remember we talked about in the training 4% being this kind of widely accepted number that was given to us by Bengen in the early 90s, but that number was a gross number, and the probability of success they sought to achieve was 80%, not 95. So if we increase the probability of success threshold to 95, that drops the gross from 4 to 3.4. And then again, the Bengen number was a gross number, not a net number. So we have to get the fee netted out of the 3.4 to get to the in your pocket safe withdrawal rate of 2.4. So we assume 100 basis points in fees. I'm just revisiting that for your benefit. But to know how much capital we need to run the stress test is very easily. You have a $36,000 income goal. We need to know $36,000 is 2.4% of what value? $1.5 million. Well, they don't have 1.5 million, they have 1.2 million. So this plan is underfunded. So of course, the alternatives historically have been you can delay, right? Taking benefits, you can keep working, you can save more, you can be more aggressive. None of those things are typically attractive to people. So what happens is the vast majority of people move forward with a plan, whether they know it or not, that is underfunded, in this case, about 25%. And the reality is, the probability of success is far closer to 50% than it is 95%. So they're moving forward with a plan that has a high probability of failure, and they're rolling the dice because they don't realize there's any other way. But the reality is we can't hand them a check to close that gap to get them from 1.2 million to 1.5. But what we can do is look at what if we took Social Security benefits at a different time. So in this case, the alternative will say, well, what if instead of retiring at full retirement age and taking benefits at full retirement age, what if they took benefits at 70? So obviously, instead of getting 38.4, they're going to get 49,663. Again, that's because of the delayed retirement credits they would earn on their PIA between their FRA 66 and 4 months, and when they took benefits at 70. Same thing over here. The benefit now is 43,455. So now if you subtract these two values from 108,000, and then you actually inflate that net number by 2.5% for the period of time between FRA and 70, you get an inflation-adjusted gap that remains when the benefits kick in at 70 of 16,294. So in order to figure out how much capital we need for this plan, two things have to happen. One, we have to figure out how much capital do we need to close this gap from 70 and beyond. So the safe withdrawal rate's higher because we're already 3 years and 8 months into the 30-year time horizon. And of course, the gap is smaller thanks to delayed retirement credits. So the capital required to close the gap when Social Security benefits kick in is only 604,978. But that's not the whole story, because now that they're retiring at FRA but not taking benefits till 70, we need to do some self-funding between 66 and 4 months and age 70, and we call that the bridge period, and we calculate how much of their retirement capital they need to utilize to carry them during that bridge period, get them from 66 and 4 months to 70, when then Social Security benefits would kick in and the 604,978 would close the gap. What do we need to carry them at 108,000 inflated by 2.5% for the remaining time between 66 and 4 months and 70? And that's the bridge capital. So that's the bridge period. Bridge period begins when the first spouse retires and ends when the second spouse takes benefits. They would need to use $410,091 of their capital, add that to what we know they need to close that inflation adjusted income gap. And now you'll remember some of this from the class, but they need just over $1 million. So they don't need $1.5 million. And how do we get there? Again, we got there not by handing them winning lottery ticket, writing them a check, getting lucky, picking the right stock, the right bond, having a lucky sequence. We got there because we simply leveraged one of the critical tools in the toolbox, Social Security, a little differently, and we had a profoundly different outcome, right? So We can look at current now in this next page of the toolbar, Social Security planning. We can look at the current scenario, which is what they intend to do, and an alternative scenario, which you've entered in here, I've entered in, as 70. But in both instances, we're saying the ultimate financial planning strategy for delivering the retirement income need is going to be asset allocation. And the capital each of the plans would require is provided here. So first and foremost, we talk about, again, what's the income goal? What's Social Security going to provide? Then what's the gap? And then once we've established the gap and we're just revisiting it here, and we kind of revisit how much capital is required. It's 1.5 million if you take benefits at FRA and use an asset allocation strategy with the intent of having a 95% probability of success over 30 years, and it's $1,015,000 if the only change you make is when you take benefits, and in this case, that's age 70. Now, as an added benefit, we talked about this again in the class, there's some tax efficiencies afforded to Social Security income that are not afforded, at least not in the same way, to any other source of income. So now the plan more heavily weighted in Social Security, which is the plan where Social Security is taken at age 70, is also more tax efficient. So not only do we need less capital and we take them from underfunded to overfunded, but the tax efficiency has improved as well, right? And then lastly, this kind of what we call the benefits of Social Security planning. We focus on the 4 areas of concern. So if we stick with your plan, the percentage of your income goal that'll be guaranteed for life is 67%. If you move with the alternative, it's 86. Percentage of your income that's inflation adjusted automatically without market exposure, 67. With the alternative, it's 86. And by the way, these are identical because in both instances, Social Security is the driver. So Social Security is providing all the guaranteed income. It's also providing all of the inflation adjusted income, right? And then percentage is considered taxable, 61 versus 38. What's the driver of that? Plan becomes more heavily weighted in Social Security. Tax efficient Social Security is what drives down the overall taxability of the plan. And then lastly, the survivor benefit, right? So if you move forward with your plan, the survivor benefit is 38.4. So the surviving spouse, assuming no COLAs are declared, the surviving spouse gets to keep the greater of the 2 Social Security benefits, and the greater of the 2 Social Security benefits, should they file at FRA, is 38.4. So the surviving spouse would have the 38.4 plus whatever was left from the original retirement account. And the reality is, the further we get into retirement, the smaller that pool of money is likely to be because the plan was underfunded by 25% to begin with. Conversely, if we delay, not only do we have a higher guaranteed income, it's more inflation adjusted and it's less taxable. And again, it's the percentage that's guaranteed and the percent that's inflation adjusted are directly correlated to the percentage of the overall income plan that Social Security delivers beginning at age 70. And then, of course, there's the tax piece. So now the surviving spouse is going to keep the greater of the 2 Social Security benefits, but this is the age 70 benefit rather than the age 66 and 4 months. Now, the question really is, how do you make this better, right? So we've talked about this in training, and we're showing people that, if you do what people traditionally do, which is take benefits early and use an asset allocation approach to deliver the income, whether they know it or not, in many instances, they're going to be underfunded, right? So you see the statistics every day. Now you have a better handle, if you didn't already, on kind of how they arrive at that outcome. Now, I know there's software platforms out there that you can plug in, and those software platforms will tell you something different, like, oh, this plan will work fine. But let's just be realistic. These software programs that are out there are like playing an instrument. I can get them to tell me anything I want them to tell me, so long as I use the right assumptions. When it comes to asset allocation as the income planning approach, there's a lot of assumptions that go into that outcome, but there are no guarantees. And the reality is, if we're using what I call a credible process to quantify the capital requirement, in this case, the initial safe withdrawal rate, most people are underfunded. And that jives with the statistical analysis that we see that, the vast majority of Americans, some 77%, are not on pace to meet their savings targets. And now we know why. But the question is, how can we make it better? Well, rather than use an asset allocation strategy, which I would argue is a financial planning concept that was introduced to deliver growth, not income, we can look at what I'll call a 21st century approach to delivering income, and I call it asset optimization. What we're going to do here is we're going to pair the optimization of Social Security with the optimization of your assets, and we're going to take advantage of the leverage that you can get only through the law of large numbers, which is something that's a franchise right, the insurance industry, but we're going to leverage a product that's going to guarantee the delivery of that income gap for the duration of 2 lives, and they're going to do it on a deeply discounted basis. And of course, the question is, how can they do that? That's what people want to know. So the way we go about kind of introducing this is we talk about, how could we make it better? Well, the way we could make it better is we could deliver that income plan. We could increase the percentage of the income that's guaranteed, percent that's inflation adjusted, right? The survivor benefit. But how can we do all that? And the way we can do it is by taking a different approach. But the way I set this up, and it's worked out very well, is I ask people what they would think of me as an advisor if I said to them, once your house is paid off, you should think about dropping your homeowner's insurance, because if the mortgage company is no longer involved, right? If the lender is no longer involved, they can't require you to continue your homeowner's insurance. And the reality is, statistically speaking, you have less than 0.3% chance that your home would be a total loss in any given year. And of course, in this example, they have $1.2 million in retirement capital. In the outside chance that their home was a total loss, they could just rebuild their home. If the home was worth less than $1.2 million, they could rebuild it using their retirement capital. In the outside chance that happened, and maybe they can save themselves $5,000 a year in insurance premium for an insurance solution that's probably never going to pay off. And I'll ask people point blank, what would you think of me if I recommended that you do that? And I'm sure you can guess the response that I get. Leaving out the profanity, people tell me I'm crazy. I say, okay, I agree. I think that would be absolutely dumb to do that, given that I can protect this incredible risk, in spite of the fact that it's unlikely. I can protect it for pennies on the dollar. But answer me this: why is it in the United States today we have the first generation retiring in mass who's largely funding the bulk of their retirement out of their own retirement capital? Why is it that's the one thing would tell them they have to self-insure, right? You would tell me I'm crazy to suggest you self-insure your house against the unlikely chance you have a total loss of your home. You'd say that's crazy. But when it comes to retirement income planning, you'd only be crazy if you didn't self-insure it, right? The entire industry is convinced everybody that's the one thing you have to self-insure. And I would argue that if people truly understood that the very same business model they entrust to protect them against every other financial catastrophe could not only provide the income that they need to make their income plan whole, but they could do it on a contractually guaranteed basis and do it for the duration of 2 lives without any risk. And they can do it at a deeply discounted basis like they do for all the other protections they provide. They'd be happy to do it, but they just simply don't understand that it exists, and they haven't been taught how it works. And of course, if anything, they've been programmed to think just the opposite. So I had a case the other day where this client said, my brother doesn't like annuities. And I said, well, that's by design, right? You have an entire industry that wants your brother and everybody else to think that annuities for some reason are a bad deal for you. But when I'm done, I think you're going to see things a little differently. So here we go. I've kind of laid the groundwork for you. That's how we set it up. You'd be crazy to self-fund the potential loss of your home, which is about as likely as getting hit by lightning. But when it comes to your income plan, you'd only be crazy if you didn't self-insure that. Well, let's look at it. What if we didn't self-insure it? What if we utilized the same business model, the same industry to protect our income and provide our income that we do with the rest of our potential financial risks we face. Well, guess what? The $108,000, if we took benefits at 70, the inflation adjusted income gap would be $16,294. And instead of self-funding, which is what asset allocation is, it's self-funding with self-insuring. If instead of that, we went to DMI and said, how much would Athene require us to invest today to contractually guarantee that that $16,294 was delivered for the duration of 2 lives, and the structure of that product also provide a performance-based ongoing income solution? The premium is $271,835. So if I add that to the $410,000 of bridge capital, which doesn't change because the assumption, once again, is that I retire at FRA, but I don't take benefits until 70. Now the capital requirement is $681,926. So let's think about what happened. We went from a capital requirement of 1.5 million if we took benefits at FRA. And we said, what if we took benefits at 70? The capital requirement went from 1.5 million to just over 1 million using an asset allocation approach. And then now we say, well, what if we took Social Security benefits at 70, but instead of using an asset allocation approach, we used an asset optimization approach, and we introduced into the equation a product designed specifically to provide income on a deeply discounted basis and do it for the duration of 2 lives. The capital requirement is $271,835 plus the bridge capital, we're at $681,296. So I said earlier, our goal is to build better, more fortified plans for 50% less capital. $681,926 is clearly more than 50% less than what would be required if you were to actually self-fund the income plan using an asset allocation approach. Now, to kind of close this out, if we compare the optimized plan versus the alternative plan, again, the difference is we're going to take Social Security at the same time, but we're going to use an annuity rather than asset allocation to provide the income gap, was to manage the income gap. The percentage of income that's guaranteed for life bumps from 86 to 100. The percent that's automatically inflation adjusted without market exposure goes from 86 to 100. The tax efficiency remains the same because it's the Social Security that drives that, or the percentage that's coming from Social Security. Look at the survivor benefit. Why is that so much larger? Because the survivor is not only going to retain the higher of the two Social Security benefits, but they're also going to get, for the balance of their life, the $16,294 that's being paid out from Athene via the lifetime income benefit rider, because the annuity we purchased is providing that income for the duration of 2 lives. The real magic here is this: the capital requirement. Again, this is where we make a difference. The only difference between these two plans from a capital perspective is driven by strategy, right? So if I use an asset allocation approach to deliver the $16,294 needed to meet the total income goal, I need 1.15 or 1,015,000. If I use an asset optimization approach, I need 681,926. It's a game changer. Tax efficiency is the same. So simply by taking a different approach and leveraging all the tools in the retirement income planning toolbox, we deliver the retirement income plan for considerably less capital. Now you can see all three of these here, these three options on the plan comparison page. And again, looking at, we call it 4 areas of concern: percent that's guaranteed, percent that's inflation adjusted without market exposure, tax efficiency, and finally the survivor benefit. And this is critical, and I'll come back to this in a minute. But then beyond that, we just revisit, how do we arrive at the income gap, which is ultimately what you're responsible for providing as the financial advisor. We go back to the plan capital. So you have $1.2 million. Doing it your way, you need $1.5 million. You can certainly go forward with that. You can use the alternative plan, or you can use the optimum. Ooh, that was loud. Now think about it this way. Let's take all the product names out of it for our own benefit for a minute. Let's just pretend somebody walked in and said, I have $1.2 million. I need $85,000 of income for life. I want it to last for the duration of my life, my spouse's life. I want it guaranteed. I want inflation adjusted. I want all those things. I don't care where you invested or how you invested. I just want to know that you'll be able to deliver for me exactly what I'm asking for. Okay. Well, let's say I come back to you and I say, look, I found 3 houses on the same street. They're identical in every way. They're all brand new. They all provide lifetime leases. They're all inflation adjusted. Nobody can get out. It's going to deliver exactly what you want. But the only difference between these three houses is how much you have to pay for them. So the one on the left has a price tag of 1.5 million. The one on the right has a price tag of 1.1,015,000. The one in the middle has a price tag of 681,000. Can you think of any reason why, in good conscience, I should recommend that you buy the house that's going to require you to commit all 1.2 million, knowing you're still 300,000 short, when the one in the middle is only 681,926, and it's going to provide all of what you want on a guaranteed basis? And the answer is no. You can't think of any good reason, because there isn't a good reason, other than people don't understand the fact that you can do this very differently when you use an asset optimization approach versus an asset allocation approach. Not only that, you have $518,000 of excess capital. Remember, I said, what happens if we grow that at 5% in 10, 20, and 30 years? So for all those people who want to have their cake and eat it too, which strategy, it's the current on the left, the alternative on the right, and the optimizer in the middle, which strategy is most likely to deliver to you an experience where you can have your cake, your income, right, and eat it too? So this is it. Now think about this, going back to the survivor benefit for a minute. The survivor benefit under the optimized scenario is almost $66,000. Assume no COLAs on either the Social Security benefit or the lifetime income benefit. Not only that, 20 years from now, not only will the survivor have considerably more income under this plan than they would have had under that plan, but look what they have left for capital, right? At a 5% number. And that's a reasonable number, knowing I'm never have to worry about dollar cost averaging, because this plan's fully funded, and I'm not going to be forced out of any position during a bad market cycle just to meet my monthly income needs. My monthly income needs are fully provided for. So I'm going to close it out with this. My position is, and I shared this with you before and I'll share it again, asset allocation is a growth, financial planning growth concept. And it's a misplaced approach to retirement income planning. It's not possible, given the timing, was ever created as an income planning approach. It was introduced in 1952. Here we are 70 years later. We're really not doing anything different. And in spite of the fact that we've transitioned the burden off the employer and onto the employee through defined contribution plans, we're out here using a financial planning strategy that we know was created for growth. And we're trying to say, you know, that's the right thing to do. Well, look at it this way. This cost of income page drives the point home. Under the current plan, they need $36,000 over 30 years. If I inflate that $36,000 by 2.5% each of those years, over a 30-year period, the plan is expected to deliver just shy of $1.6 million in retirement income. The capital requirement to do so using a good, credible process for quantifying that figure, and that is a safe withdrawal rate, is $1.5 million. So I need $1.5 million of the $1,580,497 the plan is expected to deliver. I need the 1.5 upfront to have a chance to meet the 95% probability of success I hope to achieve. So what's the cost of income? How much do you have to commit up front? 95 cents of every dollar up front will get you not to 99, but to a 95% probability of success. Think about that for a minute. If you're not convinced that that's self-funding, that's as close as it gets. And if I drive up the probability of success to 99, you know, this number is going to go up as well. I can wait till 70. That has an impact on the total capital requirement. But when I break it down and I analyze it from a cost of income perspective the same way, I actually need $1.01. So even though I knew less capital in the aggregate, right, the actual cost of $1 of income is more than $1 of savings. And then on the optimized plan, I deliver it for 46 cents on the dollar. So it's very simple. One plan provides leverage. The other requires you to self-fund. So the irony is everybody's been convinced that the one thing they should self-insure is their income, and yet their income is the one thing that makes everything else that they're not self-insuring possible, right? Because without income, you couldn't have any of these other things you're trying to protect through the power of insurance. So that's the Athene Retirement Optimizer. I don't expect you to turn around tomorrow and deliver a plan to somebody. That's why we highly recommend that you work with us to devise and develop your first few plans so that you can come up the learning curve fast and become comfortable. But I wanted you to see how all the pieces and parts come together in this one place. This is just math. A lot of people will say, oh, this is complicated. I would argue it's not complicated. It's new, it's different, but it's not complicated. If you think about it, asset allocation is about as complicated as it gets. I cannot tell somebody exactly what the cost will be until both spouses have passed away, because everything is predicated on assumptions. Under the optimized strategy, not only can I tell you exactly how much I have to commit to the plan today, but the upside of that is I know exactly how much I have left to do something better, more powerful with. The only way you can do that is through an optimized approach. So I would argue we might be more comfortable talking about asset allocation as an industry, but it's hardly simple. It's far more complex than what we're talking about today. What we're looking at today is just math, and it's just getting comfortable with the moving parts. But at the end of the day, it's just simple, A plus B equals C, or A minus B equals C. Once you get it, and once you start using it every day, the impact not only is profound for the people that you're building plans for, but for you and your practice and your reputation. And it's a game changer for the right financial advisor who truly wants to be a retirement income specialist. So I'm going to stop, see if there's any questions. I know that was a lot in a short window, but throw them at me if you have any.
Andy, how do we access the Athene Retirement Optimizer? Is it on their website?
Yeah, so the Athene Advisor portal is where you'll find the Athene Retirement Optimizer. And I think probably, Declan, the best thing to do would be to reach out and talk with your partner at Athene and make sure all our folks, are set up, or get them the information they need to get access. Because as long as everybody here is contracted with Athene, they have access to the software.
Great. Okay, thanks.
You bet.
And that platform is called Athene Connect.
Thank you, Glenn. Yep. Athene Connect. So this is new and it's different, and it's going to take some at-bats to get comfortable with it. But again, once you do, I think you can see the power of it, and it's very defendable because it's just math. So, and I don't think you'd be on this call and working with Athene if you didn't believe in the power of these products that Athene develops and other people in the industry develop. This is how we really put them on display in a way in which they're seen through the appropriate lens. Anybody else?
Thank you, Andy.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys. Thank you. I look forward to working with you guys when you have cases. I'll say this, and it's really important that you know this. I have people sometimes come and say, I hate to bother you with this. This is all I do. And, we're very particular about who we work with. So, Glenn and Declan and the rest of the team have talked with you guys. You guys have made the effort to go through this. We have the capacity to help you. Don't be bashful about contacting us and get us involved in the case design. That's the best and most effective way to make this part of what you do every day.
Hey, Andy,
Yes.
not going to let you off that easy here.
Okay.
So on the inputs, the WEP, we have to figure out that figure on our own, right? Using
No. If you don't have to figure it out on your own. So what you need, though, is you need their Social Security statement.
Yeah.
So let me go back to that. It's a fair question. So let me go. The problem is this is a non-pension solution, but let me if anybody has to go, I understand, by the way. But I can walk through this real quick. So I don't have the case built out here, Jay, but let me just throw some stuff in here real quick.
Yeah, just generalize.
Well, you can see it. It's no problem. So let's say we have that situation where there's a WEP, and I know you're in Mass, so it's real. In some places it doesn't come up, but for you and I, it comes up. So what would happen here? This is kind of the same scenario, right? So now let's say down here we have the pension. You have a pension. So let's say the first spouse has a pension, and let's say the monthly pension benefit is $3,000 a month. Okay.
Yeah.
And it begins at 65, Now, the question is it a public or private sector, right? So public servant versus private sector employee. Public is where the WEP comes up. So you'll remember we talked about the YOCs, and in your book it had the yearly substantial earnings requirement to earn a year of credit or a YOC.
Yep.
So this is the only way to do this, and it's crazy, but somebody brings to you their earnings record. So their complete earnings record. So I'm really glad you actually asked this question, because the statements have changed recently, and now they kind of group your earnings history and they aggregate it.
Right.
If you go into SSA.gov, you can pull down somebody's actual earnings history by year. So you pull that down and you compare that to what's in the manual, what's in your book year by year. And for every year, the amount that they have on their record surpasses the requirement, they get a YOC. So that's the part you have to figure out on your own. So now we come over here and we say, all right, let's say your client has 25 YOCs, okay? Now we're going to plug that in here, and let's see what happens. So it's gonna show you what the impact of the WEP is, okay? So we had the original PIA right here, Jay. Can you see that?
Yes.
And now, because they're subjected to the WEP, we know we need the WEP PIA to figure out not only what their benefit is, but if any auxiliary benefits are payable. There you go. So now it's $29.45.
Because you put in that 25 figure.
Yep. Now let's say I put in 20, so it's going to be a max WEP reduction. So that's gonna change it slightly, right?
Right.
So now it's $26.89. And let's go back and say the spouse's PIA is 1,000. All right, so now it's going to calculate what the spouse's spousal benefit would be, and it's going to be based upon the WEP. So here's the windfall elimination provision figure right here. That's the actual reduction, right? $511.
Right.
Then what happens is it shows up on this page. It's going to provide for you the spousal benefit, if any, that they would get. Right. So to figure out the total amount of Social Security that we're going to account for, you take their benefit amount at that age, the spouse's benefit amount at that age, plus the spousal benefit, if any. Right. And the spousal benefit is directly impacted by the WEP because the PIA that we're using to determine the spousal benefit is actually reduced as a result of the WEP reduction.
Okay, and that number you have in there for pension benefits, was that an input? Because that's very low.
$3,000 a month.
Oh, it's monthly. Gotcha. Yeah, no,
That's really high. Actually, I could.
Really?
No. 3,000 a month. Pardon me. 36,000. It's not really high. No, it's
no. So if you put in,
but it's a monthly amount.
7,000 in there.
Mm-hmm. Not going to change anything.
It isn't. Okay, it's all about the YOCs then.
It's all about the YOC. So the pension, what this would impact is their ability to collect a auxiliary benefit themselves, but it doesn't impact the WEP.
Okay, and sorry to monopolize here, but
no, that's all right.
Good question. So who should we reach out to at DMI to kind of develop a couple of beginner cases?
Well, I don't want to answer for them, but I think they would connect us, right? So you could reach out to them and they would set up a time for the three of us to kind of do this together. Is that fair to say, Glenn and Declan?
Yeah, I would say reach out to Phil J. He's been through the class. He should know the Athene Retirement Optimizer software. So I'd reach out to him.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, but I like the idea of at least for a little while, like maybe getting Andy involved too. But Phil's great. But anyway, yeah, by the way, Jay, I appreciate all the questions, and so you're not monopolizing anybody's time. Everybody's questions on here are really, really appreciated. So the reason why we do this is to get thoughts from you guys, and make sure that this is all making sense and it's something that you can take to the street. But we're actually going to have a mastermind session in November 17th, I believe, Andy, right? And what I'll probably do is send out an email to everybody that's CSSCS certified and just see what you guys want to talk about. But otherwise we'll have an agenda for that meeting. But there it'll be the same way. We just, we'll open it up to Q&A and let you guys get your thoughts out and make sure you understand what's going on. But thanks again, Andy.
Hey,
Appreciate
my
it.
pleasure. My pleasure, everybody. Thanks for the time and the great questions. And I look forward to when you have a case, putting something together with you.
Thanks a
Thanks.
lot, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Have a great Friday.
Take care.
All right,
Cheers. Yeah.
take care,
Good
guys.
weekend.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.